Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending this presentation. My name is Claudia Antolini, and I'm going to be presenting today on behalf of myself, Osnat Katz, and Helen Usher. Our work is called Astronomy for All for Astronomy. We decided to perform this work when we realized that there wasn't, in fact, a survey that had ever been made on the makeup of UK astronomy amateur communities. So when we look at the literature on equity, diversity, and inclusion in this field, we really don't find a lot. And we really want to understand what is the makeup of the amateur astronomy communities in the UK and who gets involved, why do they get involved, and how come maybe people choose not to get involved. We want to gauge the level of comfort of different groups of people when engaging with astronomy, both online and in person. We also want to address the barriers to wider involvement because we think that astronomy should belong to everyone and everyone should feel like they belong. Different groups of people encounter different kinds of barriers when engaging with astronomy, and we believe that this should be investigated and we should work out whether it depends on the presence of historical and systematic barriers, rather than just be ascribed to a lack of interest. We aim to stimulate a wider discussion within the community and to facilitate a conversation on how to foster and improve the environment in astronomy to make it more welcoming for everybody. We have compiled a 31 multiple choice open-ended short answer questions survey, which we have distributed to all the UK amateur astronomy societies in the UK and also on a number of online forums. We have collected emails for follow-up survey, which is optional. Our null hypothesis is no harassment, so we're using a one-way hypothesis testing approach. If you want, you can fill in our survey and spread the word. I will share the link in the chat for who's attending in person, and you'll be able to find it with the presentation if you're watching it later. The data we're presenting today is the result of the preliminary analysis that we've conducted on 367 responses. The makeup of our respondents seems to be skewed towards being more abundantly male, white, non-identifying as disabled, and non-identifying as LGBTQIA+. And the most abundant bracket, when we look at the age distribution, is between 55 and 74 years old. So even though our survey is not necessarily statistically representative, we do think that it's aligned with the overall demographics that participates in UK astronomy because of how wide we have been distributing our survey. When we look at acceptance and comfort, we have observed how people feel accepted and how comfortable they feel in asking questions in online versus physical spaces. We didn't observe a massive difference in this case between physical groups and online. People tend to experience similar levels of acceptance and comfort in asking questions. What becomes interesting is when we look at statements that gauge how accepting our respondents feel that astronomy is as a field for people from different demographic groups. The first plot we're presenting here analyzes how this statement has been rated. I feel astronomy is welcoming for Black, Asian, and other ethnic minorities. We have broken down our sample in 3 different ways. So we have the total number of respondents, we have the dominant number of respondents, and the non-dominant number of respondents. The dominant group is defined as the most abundant demographic group. Therefore, in this case, it will be people that identify as white or white British. The non-dominant group is people that don't identify as belonging to the dominant group. For this statement, there's actually quite a striking difference in how people that belong to the non-dominant group feel that astronomy is accepting towards them. So people that belong to the non-dominant group actually feel that astronomy is a lot less welcoming than how the dominant group perceives that astronomy is welcoming. And that is a quite interesting result of a skew in perception. When we look at the gender breakdown and we look at the following statement, I feel astronomy is welcoming for women, we observe a similar behavior when we look at the total number of responses, the dominant number of respondents, and the non-dominant number of respondents. So people that belong to the dominant group feel that astronomy is welcoming, rate astronomy as being welcoming, with a much higher rating than people in the non-dominant group assess that astronomy is welcoming for that particular group. And we think, again, for the gender breakdown, this result is not as strikingly different than when we look at ethnicity, but we still believe that this is an extremely interesting result and that there is a trend here in how people in the dominant group perceive astronomy to be with respect to how people in the non-dominant group perceive astronomy to be. Looking at barriers to participation, the most quoted ones are time availability, inability to afford equipment, and feeling inexperienced. We also have a word cloud about stereotypes about astronomy having been upheld. And the most striking thing that emerges is, again, the depiction of the older white man that engages with astronomy. This seems to be the perception that people seem to have about what astronomy looks like in a stereotypical way. The most striking result, possibly, in the slide is the fact that 1 in 8 participants to our survey reports having witnessed or experienced harassment. So it's more than 10% of respondents that have seen or experienced it firsthand. We think that that is really indicating that we should work more to improve things and make astronomy more welcoming and more accepting of everybody. What we plan to do in the future builds on the success that we've already experienced. We've had a really enthusiastic response from the astronomical community, with several local and national societies being really interested in hearing about our findings and being involved in the overall process. We have registered a consciousness of inclusion issues and a willingness to change. We aim to tackle the lack of a unified approach at a local and national level when it comes to inclusion. Over 50% respondents want to be involved in the follow-up. So this really motivates us because we've had such a positive response from people that participated. Data collection will end in summer 2021, but we're still aiming to collect some more responses. We want to perform a more granular analysis of barriers for different groups. We also want to collectively draft better practices to address harassment, improve diversity, and support in tackling discrimination in astronomy to make everybody feel welcome and safe. We're also looking for co-authors from diverse backgrounds, especially from disabled, trans, non-binary, Black people, and ethnic minorities. If you're interested in contributing in this study, especially if you identify in one of these groups, please do get in touch with us. Our email address is theinclusivetelescope@gmail.com. Thank you very much for your attention.